Hello, I'm Janelle Provost. I've been working at NBN Television in Newcastle for the past 6 years and I'm an A-grade journalist. During that time I've reported on current affairs, done live crosses during election time, as well as reporting, producing and reading live news bulletins. Good morning, I'm Janelle Provost. John Howard has easily retained the leadership of the Liberal Party following a meeting in Canberra this morning. In a vote of confidence, Mr Howard won the ballot against challenger Andrew Peacock 41 to 28.
John Howard arrived for today's all-important meeting.
New South Wales coal industry employers and unions are to meet state and federal government ministers today to discuss an industry crisis threatening about 2,000 jobs. Federal Resources Minister Senator Gareth Evans and his New South Wales counterpart Ken Gabb met employers this morning and will meet mining union officials this afternoon to discuss the problems. These talks follow last Friday's announcement by the state's largest private coal employer, Coal and Allied, of its intention to cut about 700 jobs from its 11 Hunter Valley mines.
For the moment anyway, has been resolved. Now it's on to the balloting for the deputy.
Sydney detectives are investigating a possible link between the kidnapping of a baby early today and the brutal murder of a 9-year-old girl on Wednesday night. Both incidents took place in the outer western suburbs. The baby was later found unharmed.
18-month-old Luke Chadburn was taken from his Liverpool home early this morning by a burglar.
Because Newcastle has such an important industrial base, working here has been diverse and interesting. Its port is a vital part of the city, and one of its main exports is coal from the Hunter Valley. The coal industry in mid-1987 underwent one of its most dramatic upheavals, with 12,000 miners in the valley leading a national strike. Emotions were running high.
So get here and back these fellas and let's give these coal owners what they bloody need, give the federal government what they need, a good smack right in the bloody throat.
But others were convinced that an extra pay packet would serve the members better than a strike. Despite the opposition, the motion was passed.
We've hit a brick wall and unfortunately, and I feel for this, that the industry is now in conflict. But ultimately it had to come to that, and we've exhausted all of the areas that have been possible to bring a peaceful resolve to it.
Mr Hayes says that this will probably lead to a national strike, but other aggregate meetings still have to be held. He says a final decision will be made on Tuesday. It's obvious from today's meeting that the miners are sick and tired of talking. They're also considering a march to Canberra to make it abundantly clear to Prime Minister Hawke that they're angry about his lack of support. But when the mines, especially the open cut mines, are operating, they're very impressive. So this afternoon, using 420 tonnes of explosives and 7 kilometres of surface detonating cord, the 850-metre section of wall was blasted.
4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
The company plans to blast out the rest of the wall eventually, but none will rival today's explosion. The Hunter Valley is also an area of seasonal extremes, with droughts and floods that can cause high drama. While trying to retrieve his camping gear, 22-year-old Rod McLaughlin of Umina was swept into the Torrent. Rod clung to a willow tree while the water surged past him, taking neighbouring trees with it.
Like there was about 15 trees out there when we first started, and one by one they all went. Yeah, mate. So that was the end of it. Like, I'm about the last tree standing out there, really. I'm just glad I grabbed the biggest one. I could have went under with the rest of it.
3.5 hours later, the Newcastle rescue helicopter was called in and a crewman was lowered to aid the stranded man. There were a few breathless moments when branches snapped and one after the other the men slipped into the swirling waters. Seconds later, the safety harness was in place and Rod and his rescuer were being hoisted high in the air towards the dry land. Once his feet were planted firmly on the ground, Rod couldn't contain his relief. 1985 marked the 30th anniversary of the worst flood in living memory. The torrential rain caused by a tropical low over Dubbo began on the 11th of February and continued for 2 weeks. The people of Maitland were used to floods, but nothing of the magnitude they experienced in 1955, and it was this blasé attitude that created difficulties for the rescuers. As local government roundsperson, there have been some interesting meetings to break the monotony of the mundane ones. Alderman Don Geddes moved a deputy mayoral minute confirming the council's confidence in the town clerk, Mr Barry Lewis. In a bid to cast that motion aside, Alderman Jeff Parker attempted to move an amendment which asked more questions. That was ruled out of order by Alderman Geddes, and that's when the trouble began. Finally, the town clerk informed the alderman that he would only answer questions in writing, so that he would have time to consider them. That, according to the Labor alderman, was the final straw, and one by one they filed out of the chamber claiming they had been gagged. The report was then adopted by the remaining 11 aldermen, and Alderman Geddes' deputy mayoral minute was carried. Earlier this year, Councillor Mackenzie said he would go out and hang himself if he ever went against the sale of the land. And because he was one of 3 councillors who moved a successful rescission motion, Councillor Worth took him to his word and supplied the rope.
Put it near me, mate, I'll wrap it around your neck.
Councillor Mac, don't be silly.
Don't put it near me, fella, or I won't throw a bit of water over you, I'll wrap it around your neck.
Gentlemen, please retain some order.
Don't throw rope in front of me, worthless, or I'll put it around your neck,
There
fella.
it is. There it is.
Real quick.
Why don't you do what you said you'd do?
I don't think I'm not capable, fella.
But not all the stories have been serious. The 11 artists from Papua New Guinea, Bulgaria, France, Nepal and Australia all have one thing in common. They've all worked with fellow sculptor and organiser of the 7-week-long sculpting symposium, Lawrence Beck.
There's an incredible unity between us. It's a fantastic atmosphere in our camp up there. You know, even though with some of the languages, it's very difficult to communicate with words. There's a fabulous esprit de corps between us.
The sculptors, who have been chipping away for about 3 weeks, are working in Gosford sandstone from the adjacent quarry. The stone is reputed to be one of the best sculpting mediums in the world.
The way the Nepalese do the stone carving is the Bulgarians, the way they do their stone carving, it's all different. So we're all picking up technical things from each other, but even more important than that, we're watching the sculptural side of it from each other too.
The project has been sponsored by the Gosford City Council, the SRA and the Gosford quarry owners, and it's taken Lawrence 5 years to bring the artists and the necessary funds together.
They have these sort of things all over the world, in Europe and America. The selection of the foreign sculptors, they're the best sculptors from Bulgaria. We're expecting Bulgaria's top sculptor next Wednesday. They're the top sculptors in New Guinea. Christian from France is very good. And they're the top Nepalese sculptor, and we put them together with Australian sculptors so people can see what standard Australian sculpture is at. So this area then becomes sort of like a sacred site for always.
The finishing date for these works is February 16th. After that, they'll remain here as a monument to international cooperation and the sculptors themselves. These are the types of images the judges will be looking for. They want you to photograph any scene or person in the Hunter Valley. This theme of involving the entire valley in Newcastle's Matāra Festival is carried through, with the entries being displayed in each of the Greater Newcastle Building Society's 26 branches. One of the judges, General Manager of the Greater, Bill Prince, says the branches will also have a say in the selection of the best photos.
And they will sift through the photographs they receive on a weekly basis and select what they consider about the best 50% of those on a weekly basis and send them down to Newcastle. Mr. Bert Lovett and I will then go through those photographs that come down, and from that we hope to find the right type of finalists.
So for all you shutterbugs who enjoy a challenge, you'd better start clicking, because you only have until September 25th to get your entries in at any Greater Newcastle Building Society branch.
On the eve of the federal government bringing down its much-mooted strategy for the ailing mining industry, John Maitland was playing the waiting game. The federal government has not told him what's in the document. Indications are that it was completed in the main on Friday but went before Cabinet today. The issue of a marketing authority brought a sharp response from him.
No, I'm not confident, but if the proposal that they bring out doesn't contain some reference to marketing, then I think we're facing further industrial disputation.
However, the main thrust of Mr Maitland's view is that time is running out for the industry. He says there'll be widespread mine closures by Christmas if the industry does not get itself into shape.
I believe that we only have weeks, possibly months, but certainly not beyond Christmas to overcome the current crisis, and if it's not overcome by then, I'm sure that there will be a large number of mines that will not open in the new year.
Kinross House is situated on the outskirts south of Raymond Terrace, overlooking the Hunter River. The surrounding property has been scaled down, originally spanning more than 1,000 hectares of rich grazing land. Now nearly 150 years old, the house has provided a roof over 6 generations of Bill Meredith's family, gaining a reputation for its winery and cellar, as described in the Maitland Mercury in 1865.
The cellarage at Kinross is the most perfect of any that we have yet visited. The cellars are all underground, about 25,000 gallons can be stowed in them, and then there would remain sufficient room for carrying out all the operations.
Oh, I've got mixed feelings about it, but it's a thing that we've got to move with the times, and the place is just too big for my wife and myself.
New owner Yo Todd has big plans for the old house, which has been noted by the Heritage Commission. After a good coat of paint and a few additions like a restaurant, plant nursery and an art gallery, Yo plans to make Kinross a showpiece of the area, opening the doors to tourists. Founder of the successful local company Flying Interiors, Ms Todd has been nominated for the Bulletin's Businesswoman of the Year, BHP's Pursuit of Excellence Awards, and there are already plans to document her career. Yo says she's hoping for the same string of success with her new venture.
The gala days that we'll have here, will just be superb, and everybody's welcome to come.
And when can we see the doors opened?
Hopefully Christmas. I plan to light one of the trees up and have Christmas at Kinross.
Last year, nearly 3,500 motorists chose to go to jail rather than pay traffic or parking fines. The government claims its new scheme will stop this trend and in the process reduce the prison population and police clerical work. The new system will become law on January the 1st. However, there will be a 6-month moratorium on enforcement while an education program is carried out. Under the scheme, licences will be cancelled for non-payment of fines and the option of going to jail will be removed. Once a licence is cancelled, there will be no avenue for appeal and offenders will have to reapply for their licences. In cases where offenders have no licence or where a vehicle is owned by a company, vehicle registration will be cancelled. The scheme will encompass all motoring offences where fines are imposed and will cost about $600,000 in its first year. Outstanding fines currently total about $60 million.
The new owner of Hilltop Plaza is Lendlease Retail Projects, now managing nearby Charlestown Shopping Square. A spokesman from Lendlease confirmed the selling price of $4.25 million for the 40 specialty shops and offices, as well as the Shuey supermarket. Lendlease purchased the plaza from Ascended No. 17 Proprietary Limited under property developer Kurt Picardi. At this stage, Lendlease has no major development changes for the shopping centre and plan to undertake a medium-term ownership before it's placed on the market again for reselling. With the winter season of continual heavy rainfalls, undergrowth in the Hunter region and the Central Coast is denser than usual. The early arrival of warmer weather has resulted in some areas becoming potential fire fields. In August, the Wyong Shire recorded around 60 bushfires. According to the experts, it's all in the hands of Mother Nature, and when there's a westerly blowing, fire units are on standby.
As I'm sure the westerlies are going to arrive, that the humidity is going to drop, the growth will cure right off, and we'll have potential for major fires. And the only way that we're going to contain those is, in fact, by not having people doing the wrong thing with matches, with lighting fires to burn their own places, to do some hazard reduction of their own quietly at the end, without telling anybody else, then going away and leaving it.
The unseasonably high spring temperatures of the past few days have begun to put local firefighters on their guard. Hazard reduction burning is already underway in the area to help reduce the risks. With 15 bushfire brigades now in operation in the region, the Bushfire Council is geared up to combat a busy season. However, the Regional Officer of the Bushfire Council of New South Wales, Mr Bob Hatton, says keeping bushfires to a minimum is also the responsibility of the general public. According to Mr Hatton, the expected decrease in humidity and the arrival of winds will speed up the drying process. He says the few fires we have had so far are only minor compared to what we can expect in the coming months.
Coastal areas will have a serious season, no risk at all on that one. Inland, as the season goes on, the Upper Hunter, Singleton through to Cessnock, Muswellbrook, Singleton through to Cessnock will have problems.
Income-tested family allowance payments will remain unaltered for families with a combined income of less than $50,000 a year. However, all family allowance recipients must return this income statement form to the Department of Social Security by the 13th of this month to ensure allowances continue.
If the forms are not in by the middle of October, there's a fair chance that the pensions will be suspended and won't receive their next family allowance payment in November.
People who haven't received a form should obtain one from the department and return it as soon as possible. The income test provides a $50,000 threshold for a one-child family, with a rise of $2,500 for each additional child. When income exceeds thresholds, family allowance payments will be reduced by 25 cents in the dollar. The new arrangements also mean that separate income tests for parents of 16 and 17-year-olds will be phased out and replaced by the new system. The scheme is designed to reduce Commonwealth payments to those least in need and will affect families across the country.
Well, nationally, the figure is not precisely known. Details of income nationally are not very well documented. It's thought that perhaps as many as 15% of families may lose their family allowance. But of course, these would be all from from high-income families.
What about in the Hunter region?
Well, the figure in the Hunter is going to be much lower. The number of two-income families in the Hunter Valley is much lower than the national figure, and it's thought that perhaps as many as 5 to 10% could lose it, but those figures are very loose at the present time.
Ken Cole is probably the nation's best-known coach, having won every major basketball championship in Australia, including the NBL title with the Adelaide 36ers last year. His move to Newcastle will bring some changes. The team colours will be black, silver and red, with training sessions 7 days a week. Cole says the Falcons in '88 will definitely be the fittest team and will be far more competitive than this year.
I think we can be competitive to the extent that we can give ourselves a chance at it, and it depends how rapidly the young players that we've got improve. That's the real key. The progress that the youngsters make will determine whether or not we can go all the way or whether or not we're going to be around about it. But I think we'll be highly competitive.
The Falcons have retained all their star players, including Wayne McDaniels, Jerry Everett, Captain Michael Johnson, Sean Dennis, Brian Dick and Chris Steele. From the Sydney Supersonics, Cole has brought with him 7-foot centre Derek Polk. Other new players will be Australian under-20 reps Peter Hill of Newcastle and Paul Zaddo of Adelaide. The Falcons also hope to sign 17-year-old 7-footer Neil Turner of Gosford.
Police had been working around the clock to solve the murder of 45-year-old Frederick George Schmidt. Schmidt was found on Tuesday in his blood-splattered Zara Street flat with his throat cut and jaw broken. Detectives interviewed a number of people who were known associates of the murdered man, and they were particularly keen to talk to a woman who he was last seen with. Detectives say she contacted the Gunnedah police and was later charged with being an accessory to murder. The woman, 30-year-old Julie Ann McMillan, appeared in the Gunnedah remand court and has been brought to Newcastle to face court today. Police have also charged 20-year-old Paul James Carr of no fixed address with murder. He appeared in the Newcastle court yesterday and will reappear today. Katara Public School is a happy school that has an extremely active Parents and Citizens Association. It prides itself on being able to give students the individual attention only available in a small school. So when the Director of Education in the Hunter region, Alan Beard, said in May that he was considering closing the school and using the premises for a special unit for emotionally disturbed children, it brought howls of protest. The parents and citizens got busy and quickly put pen to paper. They wrote to local politicians and the Director General of Education, Mr Winder. They claim now that their efforts have paid off. They have been told that a decision about the future of the school has been deferred until a statewide study on the needs of emotionally disturbed children can be carried out. The parents believe the school will now stay open for years to come.
I think it will be quite a few years, possibly forever, we hope. We hope that they'll never try to do it again to this school.
However, Mr Beard says this may not be so and that the statewide study should be available early in the new year.
I know that the study's been going for a few months and I would anticipate it'll be finished within 2 or 3 months, and so I would anticipate that the Director General would be in a position to make a decision sometime early next year.
Tomorrow, thousands of Vietnam soldiers will join forces again, this time to march in Sydney's Welcome Home Parade. Veterans from Newcastle will take their place in the ranks, remembering the 19 soldiers that did not return to the region.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
In the skies above Elderslie, north of Branxton this weekend, quite normal people are jumping out of aeroplanes, but not without some precaution. These are competitors in the New South Wales State Parachute Championships. 80 skydivers are flinging themselves earthwards this weekend and next to try and take out the title. They're judged on formations, style, canopy work and how they free fall and how they land. And despite what you think, there's a lot of practice that goes into falling a couple of 1,000 metres. Each manoeuvre is rehearsed on the ground beforehand, just to make sure everyone knows what's going on and doesn't forget a special move at a crucial moment. The championships continue tomorrow and Monday and wind up next weekend, and can be viewed quite safely for the novice from the ground.